Hello everyone! I hope you're all doing well after the high C orange lava burst fueled nostalgia high that was my 1990s video. It feels very nice to finally have that out in the world, and it's also just nice to, be back in general. Thank you so much for being patient with me, and also thank you for 200,000 subscribers. That happened right as I was about to go on break. I feel like just saying thank you when milestones like this are hit it's just not enough to really encapsulate how it's not enough to fully cover how much gratitude I feel for you all for watching what I do. But I hope that the gratitude comes through with the videos that I make, because I try to make them as good as I can, as consistently as I can. So thank you all for joining me as I do my weird stuff on the internet. As part of hitting 200K, I wanted to do a Q&A, bars. I also wanted to provide an update on a particular series of mine and why it has not been happening lately, but I will be saving that towards the end and going more in depth on that. So let's get into it. What is your 17th favorite album? I don't need to know the whole list, but which album feels the most like there are exactly 16 other albums that you like more than it? This is weird because I feel like whatever this record is, it would have to be one that would be like in my top 10 of a given year, or even like of a whole decade, but just because I'm looking at all of the records in all of history, would just naturally be 17th through no fault of its own. Carrie and Lowell by Sufjan Stevens. I like that record though. But at the same time, I gotta remind myself, it's like 17th is not, like, throughout the course of history, to be the 17th best album of all time. Like, that's pretty high praise still. Yeah, I will go with Carrie and Lowell by Sufjan. What is your favorite King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album that came out this year, out of Omnium Gatherum, Timeland, Changes, Ice Plus Death, and Laminated Denim? I was very surprised by Ice, Death, so on and so forth. I don't know, I think I was expecting something more like Infest the Rat's Nest just based on the cover, but it was not that at all. It was way more of like a jam-focused record, and I'm also a stickler for anybody who does like fun little bits with like musical modes, or like the scales that they were using with each of the songs. Like I'm a nerd like that. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm a nerd for music. But yeah, I think that's been my favorite this year. Omnium Gatherum is still probably second, and then Changes I think would be third. Changes, the opening track of that, super good. One of my favorite openers that they've done in a very long time. Yeah, those would be like my top three. Favorite deep discog dive you've done so far? It would depend on the reason, I would say. Like, I think like the Beatles one is a favorite just because of like how much it required to do and how just like massive it was to, tackle them and talk about them. But also how rewarding it was to learn more about their history and to, get that greater appreciation for what they did. On the other end, AJR was a lot of fun because it's just, I think it's so fun to like go into artists or bands that have a particular stigma about them and try to maybe not even like prove it wrong, but just like try to find my own feelings in all of it and try to find like greater nuances in it. So those two. Chumbawamba was another favorite of mine just because, like, literally that one started out as a joke. Like, one of my roommates recommended it as a joke, and then I looked into them and their like overarching story, and I was like, I gotta do them. What are the ones? Like Kate Bush was really fun. Redoing The Strokes earlier this year, that was a lot of fun too, because it was just like, that one came really easily. Like, a lot of times the scripts I write don't come super easily, but like that one in particular was really easy to write. So yeah, that was a good time. What got you to change the style of DDD to be more long-form videos? Not saying I dislike it, not at all. I'm just curious. It was sort of like a meeting point between people wanting it and me wanting it. I think I was just kind of getting, I was feeling like limited, and not in like the fun creative way, limited by like the shorter format that it used to have, and just giving myself more time to explain the band and their history and what I think of the records, giving myself that freedom. And then on the other end, people were, I think, also kind of getting frustrated by that limitation, and I was trying to listen to, viewer feedback when it came to that, with, like most people being like, why is this called the Deep Discog Dive? But then I changed the format, and no one ever made that comment ever again. What do you think the 2020s musical thing will be, at least so far? You predicted that When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go would have defined the early 2020s, but artists like The Weeknd and Olivia Rodrigo seem to be shifting against that. I could see it going more into pop rock or full-on synth pop, in my opinion. I agree with you on the pop rock, definitely. I think especially like the revival in the mainstream of pop punk has been like one of the biggest movements of this decade with, I mean, like you mentioned, Olivia Rodrigo, and this one might hurt to hear, but Machine Gun Kelly, like Tickets to My Downfall, was a big record, even though we, you know, don't like to admit it because it's Machine Gun Kelly. The other thing that I've been noticing too is this like increase in sampling. And I mean, I guess it's been kind of a holdover from the 2010s, but like, you know, you have like artists that are interpolating melodies in a new way. Like just this year, we've had that David Guetta, BB Rexa song that samples or interpolates Eiffel 65, so it's already the greatest song ever made. What else? There was Charlie XCX's Beg For You, and then there's one recently that I heard. I think it was like Leah Kate interpolating Kylie Minogue, I want to say. So I think that's going to continue to be a thing too. I feel like when it comes to that, it must be like a response to jump to, I think another person asked this later on, but like to jump to like the TikTokification of music, where it's like, you know, people want to be able to hook you in like the first like second or two of their song. So maybe one of the strategies they're leaning into is like, let's just get a song that people already know and enjoy and then put our spin on it. Maybe that's part of why they're doing it. And the other thing I'm interested to see is, the economy right now, because like there have been like reports over the months that we might be going into some kind of recession of some kind. And if that does happen, my first thought was that maybe we'll go back to like late 2000s, early 2010 synth pop, like you mentioned in your tweet there. But at the same time, I don't know if we as a collective culture are in that same place, and maybe we'll see something like kind of like what we're already seeing, where it's like maybe party music, but it's a lot more low key and down tempo, or maybe it's just a continuation of just music that's like Billie Eilish kind of, where it's like very much meant to be enjoyed, at least in the recorded medium, enjoyed alone and like with headphones and stuff like that. We will see, but also that's been shaky for like that's been something that people have been saying for a few months, and things are okay. I think that's what I've seen. I'm not an economist. I'm no expert. I'm Mike the Snare, not predict the economy. Who's the most popular artist you've never heard an album from? Elton John, I want to say. Yeah, I think Elton John. I mean, I know songs of his, of course, and I love a good amount of his songs, but I don't think I've ever heard an entire full album by him. I should get on that. I should also watch Rocket Man. I still haven't watched Rocket Man. Do you collect any vinyl or CDs? If so, what was your first vinyl/CD you ever got? Yes to both. I'll put up some footage right here of me showing it off, but I've got an entire CD collection on my tower over there. I've been building that up for the past few years. And then I started collecting vinyl back in like 2011, I think, and I did that for 5 years, stopped in 2016, but only recently have I invested in a new turntable and like started building back up my record collection. And then to your other question, my first CD, I want to say was Black Eyed Peas Elefunk. I think I mentioned that in a past Q&A, but yeah, I think it was Elefunk. And then the first vinyls I ever got, I got back in 2011 with the first turntable I ever had, which was one of those portable suitcase-looking ones. Don't judge me, okay? And then the first two records I got were The Strokes' Is This It, and then a Sinatra record, Frank Sinatra record. I want to say it was Songs for Swingin' Lovers. I'm almost positive it was Songs for Swingin' Lovers. What equipment do you use to listen to music, and how much of an impact do you think that has on how you enjoy an album? So over at my desk, I've got this Motu M2 interface, and then I've got these Audio-Technica headphones, the M50Xs, I want to say. This is for like if I'm listening at my desk. If I'm on a walk or something and I just need earbuds, I will go for the AirPods Pro, second generation. I got these like a month ago. And then for Bluetooth headphones, I loved my pair of Sony XM4005, terrible name, Bluetooth headphones. And those are very good, but those were like starting to break down. Like pieces of them are like held together with tape now. So recently, like a month and a half ago, I got the AirPods Max. I know that they're kind of contentious, and I would not recommend them for everybody. Like, if you are not part of the Apple ecosystem, like, do not get them at all. And they do add a bit more of EQ processing than you might want from headphones. But personally, I like the sound signature that they do have. And honestly, like, Bluetooth headphone audio quality is a bit of an oxymoron to me. I know that the Sonys have their LDAC processor that is supposed to render things in higher quality, but if I want a really good sound for what I'm listening to, I'm going with a wired connection every time. With that in mind, these AirPods Max, they feel nice on my head. I like the build quality. Case is god-awful. Case is god-awful. Not ever gonna defend that. It's bad. Really bad. Then for my turntable, as I'm recording this, I'm literally looking at my turntable stuff and the speakers I use, and I'm forgetting literally all of the brands. I will put them up on the screen right now just so you can see what they are. But yeah, this is what I use for my vinyl listening. And then to your other question about how much of an impact do you think that has on how you enjoy, I don't know if the gear itself has an impact, but I will say the gear implies a context, and the context can imply how I enjoy an album. So like the context of, say, listening at my desk over there versus, you know, taking my AirPods and like going on a walk or something. Because I am oftentimes just in different moods depending on the context. Like maybe I'll be, you know, working on something at my desk and I might be tired, and then I listen to an album and that impacts me. Or maybe I go out on a morning walk with my earbuds and I'm feeling, you know, I just woke up, I'm, you know, energetic, I'm rejuvenated, and then that's impacting my experience of the record. I remember I did that with my first listen to Mr. Morale. I just like wandered around town listening to it, and that was a good time. So yeah, I would say the gear maybe not so much, but the context definitely that the gear implies or that the gear facilitates. That definitely can have an impact on my mood and thus how I am, you know, processing a record. So yeah. What's a passion project that you hope to be able to do in the future? So there's one thing I made recently, and I don't know if it counts necessarily as a passion project because it wasn't something I was like working on for a very long time. It was like I had the idea recently, I made it, and then that was kind of it. I do plan on sharing it at some point, and I would tell you what it is. The only thing is that if I tell you what it is, it would spoil the next Deep Discog dive. So for right now, I gotta keep quiet on it. But you'll see it eventually, and you will either love me for it or hate me for it, or both. What's a video that you've been wanting to do for the longest time but can't for some reason? And congrats on the 200k subs, a well-deserved feat. Clap emoji, clap emoji, clap emoji. Thank you very much. And then there's a different question unrelated to this, but the answer is going to be similar, actually. So I'm going to combine these two questions together. Would you ever do something like your Glee essay again? I loved watching it after finishing the show this summer for the first time, and you pointed out so many interesting things. Thank you so much. There is one video I have been wanting to do ever since the Glee video, and it's not that I can't do it necessarily, but it's just other things have come up since then, and they take up my time, and I can't devote the energy that I want to for that video. If you're familiar with musical TV shows at all, you might be aware of one called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. And I want to do a video on it because I do really like that show. I think that show offers an interesting counterpart to Glee, as it kind of tackles a lot of the same things that Glee does. But I also would want to talk about it because of the original music. All the songs were written by Rachel Bloom and the frontman of Fountains for Wayne. And there's some really good stuff in there that I would love to highlight, and also just talk about the show and how it came to be. The thing holding it back is that I've already seen it all the way through, but I want to rewatch it again and take notes for it. And I sometimes I just don't have the time to like sit down and watch multiple episodes of a show. But that is in progress. It is happening, and hopefully at some point it will happen. Coming from someone who knows absolutely nothing about mixing terms, what's something that's done in the mix of a song that is chef's kiss? I have a whole bunch of them that I'll rattle off. Two of them I know I've mentioned in videos before. There's a song by Oasis off of their record Don't Believe the Truth, I think it is. It's the one from like 2005 or 2006. It's a song called Part of the Queue, and it's a point halfway through the song where a piano enters, and the way that it enters into the mix is just like, it just fits so beautifully. And it like the mix was the whole time was just waiting for it, but you don't realize that until the piano hits, and it's beautiful. The other one I'll mention is the War on Drugs Strangest Thing, the two different parts where the guitar comes in. When the solo first comes in, and then like towards the end where it's just like distorted to all hell, but somehow it's not like overpowering anything in the mix. That's beautiful. For some more recent mix things that I love, granted, some of these are musical decisions, but I personally believe that the best mix decisions also enhance the music. Like, the best mix decisions are themselves best musical decisions, if that makes sense. Some more recent ones that I love, Kendrick's United in Grief. There's one bit in the first chorus, I think, where it's like the drum pattern is the but then it changes into I love that. It only happens once in the song. I love it. Then there's Gang of Youth's The Kingdom Is Within You. There's a part in the second verse where the guitar enters and it's literally like just playing a note for the whole time, but the way it's situated in the mix as everything else changes, like the melody and all of the different, as the rest of the band ramps up, I love how they just have that one consistent element going. I'm a sucker for like pedal tones and stuff like that, so that's really cool to me. There's a new Ellie Goulding song, Let It Die, where on the chorus there's a really sick offbeat hi-hat hit that syncs up with when Ellie Goulding is singing. I love stuff like that too. And then on the most recent Carly Rae Jepsen record that came out like a few weeks ago, the song Talking to Yourself, there's a bit on the chorus where she's like, do you think of it when you're talking to yourself? That drop out right before self, between your and self. I love that so much, and how the whole band drops out. Yeah, really, really good stuff. Love all those. Dude, where's my car? Where's your car, dude? Dearest Michael the Snare, what is your favorite mix in the DJ Hero games, and would you ever do an examining video on DJ Hero / the rhythm game genre as a whole? I think favorite mix would be Bust a Move and Around the World. That or the one from the intro animation, Fix Up Look Sharp with Genesis, because that was the first time I ever heard Justice, and that got me into Justice. And then to your second question, yeah, absolutely, because there's so much to rhythm games, like beyond just like Guitar Hero and Rock Band and all that sort of stuff. Like there's like Rez and the stuff that Harmonix was doing before and after Rock Band. Also Elite Beat Agents, that's an incredibly good game. Ruined my DS screen, that like final level, but still worth it. Do you feel that creating about music has affected your relationship with it? Has it changed that relationship for better or for worse? I wouldn't frame it as for better or for worse, just because I think just naturally through me growing as a person, my relationship with it would change. I've tried to be mindful of not thinking about records or music as just, all right, how does this help me make videos, or like, hey, what can I talk about? Because I don't want to lose that charm that music has for me, but that's also kind of a tough balancing act, because I think it's just trying to find that perfect middle ground of like, am I still getting enjoyment out of listening to music, but also am I, finding enough of an opinion or finding enough to say about it that it could make for a video of some sort. I think one of the things that's helped with that is talking less about individual records and more about broader cultural movements, or just broader things in culture. That's helped a bit too, because then it's not so much that I'm talking about music and I don't have to dilute that relationship, but I'm still able to talk about music in a way that people find engaging. So it's a balancing act. It has been for the past nearly 5 years, and it'll continue to be. But it's fun, I think, to kind of find out new, to figure out that relationship more and more, and to understand it, how it grows, and how to serve it best, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a bit philosophical, but I hope that answers your question. Is there an artist you'd never want to cover on the Deep Discog Dive? Within reason, no. I think I could cover pretty much everyone that I would expect people to request. There are definitely a couple that I would dread doing, and it's not because of like the size of their discography. It's just because talking about them gets into some very, very like dark and depressing places. So like the three that come to mind are like R. Kelly, Chris Brown, Michael Jackson. Like I think reasonably like Michael Jackson would be one of the, you know, the one out of those three that would get more requests for a DDD. But yeah, that is going to be... What's your opinion on the long-term potential benefits of TikTokification of popular music? I feel like the conversation has been too focused on the negative aspects, appealing to low attention spans, shorter songs, death of the bridge, etc. Love the 90s retrospective, by the way. Thank you so much. I feel you on how the conversation is leaned negative. I think it's funny, too, that a lot of those come also from the streaming discussion. Like, I remember hearing about, like, shorter songs and the death of the bridge, like, that people calling that an effect of how like streaming was, you know, affecting music. So I don't think those are like necessarily new things that TikTok is inventing. It might just be putting its own spin on it. If I had to give one benefit of it, I think it's nice to see when artists are able to like flex their creative muscles outside of just the music. And I think that can help, you know, broaden the world of their music, but also just showcase the other talents that they have. The thing that pops into my head is like Magdalena Bay, who have like a very signature style of humor that they've woven in with their visual aesthetic, and that in turn impacts and influences the music as well, and they kind of like feed off of each other. I think they're a particularly good example of how to, you know, do, you know, social media and TikTok right. At the same time, I know there are musicians out there that wouldn't want to focus on the social media part. Like, they are musicians, they just want to do the music. I sympathize with it. I think, I don't know, I'm biased because, you know, I'm a creator myself, but I also consider myself a creative. And there are definitely times when I'm like balancing like my own creative desires with the wants and needs of the algorithm, and trying to like, I really want to do something creative, but I don't think the algorithm's gonna like it. Like, I feel that to some extent. But yeah, that's one benefit that I've come to see, and I do really appreciate about the TikTokification of music, I guess. I was thinking about this question more after I filmed this, and I wanted to add one more benefit. This one depends on the artist, but it is great to see artists responding to the culture in real time and collaborating with the greater community. The example that springs to mind on this one is Meghan Trainor. She's got this new record and the song Made You Look that's out, and she's been making a lot of really savvy moves with it. Just in terms of, you know, like the song comes out and somebody makes the dance, and so that's the dance that everybody uses, like, and then using the platform in organic ways that just so happen to promote the song, and not just like shoving the song in a rigid way down everybody's throats, like trying to fit like the square peg into the round hole. You can think whatever you want about the song, but I think she's been doing a really great job of just showing up and being a part of the community. It is really nice when people who are that popular or that recognizable, you know, try to show up and be like, oh, I'm just like you guys. And sometimes that can feel very fake, but I think in Megan's case, so far she's been doing a good job of threading that needle. So that's another benefit I was thinking about. Do you see yourself retiring from YouTube anytime soon? Have you given that question any thought? I have thought about it, especially this past year. I think it was just because like I always envisioned like a good like clean 5 years for myself, if I even, you know, did get to that point, because my initial plan was just to like do this until like I got a job doing something similar, but then, you know, things got bigger than that, so I kept doing it, of course, and I found it incredibly rewarding. But I have given it thought, at least because I'm just starting to think of like what the next step is for me as a, you know, an online creative, I guess. I don't think I'm gonna like stop making stuff on the internet anytime soon. Like I don't think I'm gonna do that, but I have been giving thought of like what the next thing is, and maybe, I mean, it could just be, you know, more Mike the Snare, of course, but like it might be, you know, like a podcast, or it might be, you know, something more collaborative or something like that. So it's not necessarily that I'm like going to retire, but I have been putting thought into like what the next step is, so to speak. which experimenting more with video formats has helped with, because I'm able to then see where else I can take the channel, and not just do the same things over and over again. So yeah, your passion for all music is truly inspiring. Thank you so much. Do you remember anything specific that drew you towards making this your career? This might be corny, but I just genuinely can't see myself doing anything else. Like, I don't think there is, in the wide multiverse of Mike the Snares, I don't think there is anyone out there that would be as fulfilled if he wasn't doing something music related. I'm talking about myself in the third person. I feel very narcissistic. No, it's just I can't really imagine myself being more fulfilled doing anything else than what I am doing right now. It's corny, I know, and it's kind of basic, but it's just true. It's like that line from the Lego movie where it's like, I know it sounds like something from a cat poster, but it's true. Do you have any favorite artists / bands that are technically considered one-hit wonders? Gautier, that 2012 record, Making Mirrors, God, it's such a good record. It's such a good record. In a lot of ways, I feel like he was like the last real one-hit wonder. Maybe Magic too. Where's Magic now? What's one thing an aspiring artist, producer, music critic, or any other creative should know about the music industry before engrossing themselves in it? I'll give two answers to this. One is basic and corny, but it is true once you're like doing it for a while. And then the other one is something it's taken me a long time to learn. The first thing is, do it for the love. Do not expect really, or how do I phrase this? Like, be willing to do it, even if it does not like make you money immediately. And I'm not saying like, don't sell yourself short or like get paid less than what you're worth. Nothing like that, but just like plug away with it as if you may never see a dime from it, I guess. It's kind of like the same advice that, I want to say LeBron gave about basketball, or like Marquez Brownlee gave about making YouTube videos, actually. Yeah, do it for the love, definitely. And then the second thing is kind of adjacent to that, but it's taken me a while to learn because I'm an impatient bastard. Success is often about doing the right thing, but also doing that thing for a long period of time. It's like a formula of like quality over time. Like if you're doing good things, very rarely do they just immediately succeed. You need to be doing them for a while and to build up your reputation in that way. Oftentimes I've seen that like the longest and most fruitful careers are built off of just time and effort, because you're able to build relationships and connections with people that may not be necessarily as strong or as positive if you were, just getting big as fast as that. Any advice for people who want to create YouTube videos like you do? Also, what's your secret between balancing your YouTube stuff and all your other work and engagements? You're fantastic. Thank you. I do it by not having a life outside of that. No, actually though, this year especially, I've been able to strike a pretty good balance between YouTube, my day job, and like everything else in my life. But that definitely took time. I think when it comes down to that, it's just kind of feeling yourself out, where it's like, giving yourself breaks when you need to, listening to like when you're feeling creative or you're feeling in the moment to do something, listening to that. Just like, I think it kind of comes down to like self-care and compassion of just, trusting your gut and not like overexerting yourself super, super heavily, because then, I don't know, you might still make good stuff out of that, but you're not going to feel good about it. And I have personally found that feeling lingers with you longer than the satisfaction of getting something out. And then for advice, I will give like a potentially corny piece of advice, but then I'll try to like follow it up with a bit more detail. Make videos that you would want to watch. And what I mean by that more specifically is, all of us have our own unique interests and things that appeal to us and things that make us laugh or feel some kind of emotion. And all of those things combined together make us who we are. So if you want to get into creating, see the kinds of things that you're interested in, especially the things that maybe seem unrelated to anybody else, but that you can weave together just because you're into them and just because that's what you're gravitated to, and because no one else can do that, because no one else has those same interests in the same way that you do. Being able to do that is kind of the step in finding your creative voice. And then once you have that, down, so to speak, because it's never like you like define it and that's it, you never work at it again. But once you have like a semblance of your voice down, that's when people start taking notice, because that's when they see that like, oh, this person is doing something that no one else really does, or at least in their own way. And it's because you're you and you pull together all of the influences that you have to make something that's uniquely you. Oh, and one other piece too, especially to someone starting out, let yourself suck. Like I was such a harsh critic on myself when I was starting out, but with any kind of endeavor, you do just kind of need to like put things out in order to get better at them, basically. And that can be either by like, you know, doing what you want to do like by yourself first and then putting things out into the world, or if you just want to like put things out as you go and like show people how you are improving over time, which is kind of like what I feel I did. Like if you go back to one of my first videos versus what I just, you know, the 90s video or something, you know, more recent, like I personally feel like there is an ocean of difference between the two, but that wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't made all of the videos in between. So yeah, let yourself suck. Do you think that TikTok is ruining live concerts? With the things that Steve Lacy is going through with his tour, is it safe to say that people who grew or had a song that blew up on TikTok are going to have a shitty experience when they are touring? This ties back to the TikTokification question because I'm skeptical to say that anything is ruining live music or music in general. Like I don't want to ever get to that point where I'm like a crotchety, I'm not speaking for this person specifically, like this is my own feeling, but I don't want to be like a crotchety old man complaining about like the kids these days and like music was so much better back in my day. And of course people are fans of Steve Lacy, like he's been doing great work for the past decade or so, like with the internet and with, you know, his own stuff. But I think it's just a natural runoff effect of him gaining so much popularity just this year. And I think it's kind of, I think it's going to even itself out at some point. Maybe not this year, like he'll have to ride out the tour, but I think once he is, maybe with his next album cycle or whatever, he'll get to a good even place where it's like, people know who he is, they'll come for Bad Habit, but they'll also hopefully have more, you know, knowledge of him because they're, you know, more intensely following him after the success of that song. What is an artist/artists that you love that you haven't talked about on your channel yet? Love your videos, thank you so much. I think everybody has gotten a mention by now within the past like 4 years. I think the only one that I would like to go in more detail on at some point is Ben Folds. He had a very big impact on my interest in music when I was a younger lad, and I have not really given like a full look at his albums in a way that I would like to. So at some point I would love to do a DDD on him. But aside from him, I think everybody's gotten at least some kind of mention so far. What are your favorite music videos? Do you believe that an iconic music video makes a good song great, or the inverse? Maybe like in the moment, but not in the long term. Like a good video is a good video, a good song is a good song, and the best videos don't necessarily supersede the song, they just kind of add an additional layer to it to, you know, enrich the experience. As for some of my favorite music videos, I've got a list right here. The Shoes, Time to Dance, Nothing Like Watching Jake Gyllenhaal Murder Innocent People, Food House Ride. This one's a fan one, but it's the War on Drugs Red Eyes, and it's just a supercut of a bunch of people in movies running. Hypes me up every time. Really good stuff. Daft Punk's Da Funk, Mad Villain's Accordion, Kendrick Lamar's These Walls, Charlie XCX's 1999, Chairlift's Polymorphing, Brockhampton's Heat, Sisyphus's Alcohol, Spoon's Jealousy, Fiona Apple's Hot Knife. I'm sure there are more, but those were just the ones I could think of off the top of my head. Which are you more nervous about when prepping for a DDD? An artist with a long discography or an artist with a reputation for a lot of bad albums? Oh, easily the one with bad albums. Because either you listen to them and they're rough and then you get to, you know, talk about that, or you find something positive to say and then you get to go against people's expectations, and that can be really fun sometimes. Long discographies just can be boring because sometimes you just don't have a lot to say about an album, or you don't have a lot to say about the stuff that happens in between records. So it's just kind of like, this person did this and then they did that. This album came out, it had these songs, then they moved on to the next one. Like when you have records that you can like talk about more in depth and figure out like, you know, maybe why people don't like them and why you disagree or agree with that, that can be a lot of fun in my opinion. So yeah, I would take the reputation for bad albums any day of the week over just a long discography. How do you go about analyzing music that is very tied to certain cultures and identities you don't hold, i.e. music tied to Black or queer communities? Is your research different? How do you give proper insight without stepping out of your lane? That is a very thoughtful question, and it's one I think about a lot, so thank you for asking. I think the thing I always try to keep in mind is that I am an outsider in those circumstances, and while I do try to do my research as best I can from people who are within those communities, I will really not ever be able to fully understand. So when I speak on the music, I speak on the things that are within my purview, but I tried my best not to step outside of that. I'll give an example of a record I'm sure you're all familiar with, Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. I believe I can speak on, how the music makes me feel, on the production, certain bits where I can really feel Kendrick's emotion, like the second half of You, like always hits me in the gut, because I believe I can empathize with the general emotion of like sadness, doubt, self-hatred. But as it pertains to that album's overall message about the Black experience in America, I can't speak on that. Absolutely not. And I would be a damn fool if I tried. I try my best to, stay within my lane in that sense. Thank you for that question. What artist did you gain the most appreciation for after doing a discography dive on them? Chumbawamba. Easily Chumbawamba. God, that one was so fun. How do you approach music when it's not particularly enjoyed by critics, but obviously loved by fans? I guess I know the refrain is that music is subjective, which is certainly true, but then what do you believe the value of criticism in music is? Also, it's good to have you back. Thank you so much. The first part is just I go in and I just personally see how I feel about it. I always find that kind of divide interesting because I think there's always something interesting to gain from that tension of like, why does this one group go into this music with a certain kind of expectations and react this way versus why does this other group feel this way about it, feel the opposite way? And then when it comes to the value of criticism, I think there's two things at play. One is internal, and I think it behooves anybody to spend time with different music to think about and process the things they like in music, the things they don't like in music, and try to cultivate a musical taste from that. I think that is of value to anybody. So I think if we're talking about criticism in that sense, like internally knowing what you like and dislike, I think that's a good thing. Externally, I think the value comes from us and just the fact that we give it value. I don't know if there's a way that I can put it without going off on a much bigger tear, but I think it's just the fact that we as people like to give our opinions on things. And so we will do that in big forums like the internet. Just like sharing our... I don't know. That's a big one, like externally. I don't know if I fully have it figured out yet. And I'm certainly grappling with it myself. Can you answer the rest of these questions on a different day and in a different shirt? Weird request, but sure. Loved your video on listening to metal to try and gain a better understanding of it. Do you have any plans to do a similar type of video with a different genre? Oh, hell yes, I do. Yeah, that was meant to be the start of a new series, and I would have been doing more of them had I not taken the break. But yes, I absolutely do plan to do more genres. Like I want to do like Vaporwave and K-pop, I think are the big ones on my list that I would love to do. Would you have plans to do a follow-up on your metal video? As a metalhead, I would love to hear about any albums you've heard since then and your thoughts on subgenres you didn't initially cover. So I'm gonna be honest, my hiatus did kill a lot of my appetite for listening to new music for a good bit. I think the most recent metal record I've heard since then was the new Fleshwater record. So I haven't been doing much of it recently. Doesn't mean I plan to stop. It's just, I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. But I got asked this question a good amount by other people, and it got me thinking, would you want me to do like a follow-up video for all of the genre videos I do? I mean, no promises or anything, just depending on schedule, but like, I'm thinking of like, the equivalent to like PBS Idea Channel's comment responses, where they would make a video and then make an entire other video dedicated to just talking about like what the responses were from the prior video. If that's something you'd be interested in, let me know, because I think that could be a really cool way to, engage and to, find new records for not only myself to listen to, but for all of you to listen to. I think that could be really cool. Wanted to ask your thoughts on giving numerical ratings to albums. I know you don't rate albums in your reviews, but are you against doing that? Also, I have a more pressing question. What's your favorite album cover? Yeah, I don't like numerical ratings. On one hand, I get that some people use them for like their own personal classifications, like how they would rank specific groups of albums in relation to one another. I don't really have a problem with that per se. My issue is when it enters discussion with other people and when the number itself becomes the thing everybody's debating instead of anything to do with the record. Like just when you have people who are like, I think this is a 10, I think it's a 5, I think it's a 2. I'm not a fan of that. That's the gist of it. And I don't know if it's my favorite album cover, but the one that's coming to mind right now is For You by Tetsuro Yamashita. Yeah, just a beautiful cover on that. Look at that. You could just lick that store. Favorite needle drop. The one that's coming to mind right now is there was the show called Legion. I want to say it was season 2, episode 4. It's where, and I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but it's where the lead character is going inside someone's mind for basically the whole time. And within that episode, there is Bon Iver's 22 Oversoon, the Nationals Turtleneck, and Tame Impala's it's the opening track off of Inner Speaker, whatever that's called. It Is Not Meant to Be. That's the name of the song. Tame Impala's It Is Not Meant to Be. All 3 of those songs in one episode. I don't even know if I can be like rational about if the needle drops are good or not, but the fact that there are all of those songs in 1 hour-long episode of TV, that's it. I have no power to give anybody Emmys, but I'm giving an Emmy to that episode just for that. What are your favorite albums that released during your hiatus? Definitely the 1975. I think it's easily their most cohesive and consistent record since Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships. The new Phoenix record too, Alpha Zulu, I think. Their record from 2017, I think, is very much slept on, and I think a lot of people just kind of push them out of their minds after, Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix and Bankrupt too. But like, they've still been putting out really good records, and this most recent one is very good. The new Always record, killer. So glad to have them back. It's been too long. The new Arctic Monkeys, I don't know if I would say I love it, but I think it was a much easier pill to swallow than Tranquility Base. I think if anybody wants to try to get into their new lounge sound, I would recommend The Car over Tranquility Base. And also, the arrangements on it, I think, are just more beautiful. The use of strings on it, I think, is phenomenal and kind of calls back to Alex's work with the Last Shadow Puppets, but it's not as overly dramatic as some of the Last Shadow Puppets was. It's just more like somber and melancholic. So yeah, that one I've been enjoying. New Carly Rae Jepsen. What do I even have to say at this point? It's new Carly Rae Jepsen. It's great. And then there's 2 other records I just checked out like within the past few days. Special Interests Endure, really, really good kind of like post-punk dance record. And then last night I was listening to Fleshwater's We're Not Here to Be Loved, pretty good metal record. I think the only reason I the main reason I checked it out at first was because the cover of it has a rubber duck on it, and it reminded me of an ad I saw as a kid where it's like a rubber ducky crying, and that's always stuck out in my mind for some reason. This is how I decide what music to listen to. Which artist do you think has the capacity to make a perfect album but hasn't yet? I just mentioned them, even though I just said that their new record was good. The 1975. They swing for the fences a lot, and more often I think they hit more than they missed. That said, like, I think the like perfect 1975 album is still a ways away, and they're getting close with it. Like something that it combines like the focus of this most recent record with the like the pure pop songwriting of like I Like It When You Sleep. Like those together I think could yield something really, really tremendous. But we shall see. I think they have it in them. I just haven't seen it yet. But still, they've got good records in them, of course. Have you ever considered doing music yourself or getting a little nerdier and talking about sound engineering in depth in certain dedicated videos? I have been trying to get more like back into music. I'm not at a point yet where I would want to share any of it, I don't think, but I've been trying to get back into it just as a recreational hobby. And then in terms of nerdier sound engineering stuff, I've always wanted to do a video about like the concept of like the sound stage in the mix. My main thing is that I would want to find a way for it to be like stimulating in a video, and also just be a better video editor. So once one or both of those things happen, then yeah, I would be down to make a video like that. Favorite Crazy Frog song? I mean, the populist pick is Axel F, and of course that's good, but real ones know crazy sounds. Which albums do you think are incredible, but you haven't revisited them as much as you thought you would? My cheap answer is all of them. It's a downside of covering new music where you have to spend so much time keeping up with everything that comes out that you don't get the chance to go back and catch up with the majority of records you listen to. And if I had to give one example that I think would surprise or maybe even make some people mad, I'm telling you now so that you're not mad when the top 10 list comes out, okay? What do you think of the current state of popular music this year, and how do you think it's going to progress from here? Also, congrats on 200K. I love your videos. Thank you so much. I don't know. This year feels very liminal, and I think a lot of years feel liminal when you're in them. But I'm trying to think of like the big music that's been able to like have a cultural footprint for more than like a week or 2 weeks. And like, what has there been? There's been We Don't Talk About Bruno, Harry Styles, Steve Lacy, Lizzo, Drake at 2 different points this year, and now Taylor Swift. Not a whole lot of that, except for Steve Lacy, is new, so I don't know what that necessarily says about like the growth or the progression of pop music in the 2020s. But at the same time, I'm reminded of like 1990, or like the 90s before Nirvana blew up, where we were just kind of in this holding period before the next big thing came along and, you know, rocked everybody's socks off. This year's kind of been weird and just very up in the air, which has sometimes been a good thing. Kate Bush was in the Hot 100 for a bit. That was great. That was a really good thing that happened. But yeah, I think this year will become a lot clearer, like once we're a year or 2 out from it. In the KK Slider video, you opened with the intro, the 3 separate videos which you can't do because of the then new COVID. The first video was about the history of James Bond themes. The second video was talking about potential hearing damage that could occur at music festivals. The third one was about Glee. But I wanted to know if you would ever consider coming back to the first 2. They both seem like a lot of fun. Very astute question. Both of those videos were planned for 2020 when I was doing like the overarching like year out view of what my videos were going to be. I think Bond was delayed because the movie got pushed back from April to November. And then by the time November came around, I just had other videos I wanted to do. And then the hearing damage one at concerts, that wasn't going to be a thing until, you know, concerts came back. And now that concerts are back in some form, other videos have just kind of taken priority. But I would definitely love to do the hearing damage one. And just talking about like the importance of earplugs and hearing safety at concerts. And then the Bond one at some point too. Do you have any plans to redo certain DDDs with the same level of research and quality as the new ones? For example, Death Grips, Tyler the Creator, etc. Okay, I don't know if I've ever done this in full, so I'm going to lay out what in my mind is the timeline of the Deep Discog dive and the different phases of it. Phase 1 was the 2019 ones, all of like I think it was like from The Strokes to My Chemical Romance. All of those I do want to redo at some point. It may not happen immediately, it may take a while, but I do want to get to those at some point. Then you have like the second middle phase, which is, I would say, like Steely Dan to... what was the one I did right before Radio? Whatever the one I did right before Radiohead is. Those are kind of like the growing pains ones where I'm not adverse to redoing them for the most part, but I would want to get through phase 1 redos before I get to them. And then phase 3 starts with Radiohead and has continued ever since. And I don't have any plans to redo any of those. So to answer your question, yes, I absolutely do have plans to redo more of them, though I think the ones you gave in your example were 2 of the ones that are in phase 2. So if I ever do redo them, it'll take longer for that. As a recent fan of the Mountain Goats, have you ever seen Moral Orel? Oh yeah, I've seen Moral Orel. That was actually my introduction to the Mountain Goats. That 3rd season, dude, it changes you. I know you've talked at great length about your love for Spoon, a love I've been developing the more time I spend with their music, and I'm shocked you haven't made a DDD for them yet. Is it something you plan to do in the future, or have you just avoided it, since part of the fun of making DDDs is hearing albums you haven't already heard before? I mean, part of it maybe, but like, the real reason is I think it would be really fun if Spoon was the last ever DDD I did, because like at that point there just has to be no more worlds for me to conquer. You know what I mean? Like that's got to be the point where it's like the DDD has run its course, or I just want to move on to something else. And Spoon is like the one that I end it with. Yeah, I've just have this idea in my head of Spoon being the last one. What happened to Mike's monthly mix? Oh boy. Okay, so for context, I have been doing album reviews or album roundups for basically the entire time I've been on the internet. Most recently, it's been with Mike's monthly mix. Then before that, the Quick Review Basharoo. And then before that, just quick album reviews on their own in like 10, 20-second snippets. I have not posted any sort of album roundup video since May of this year. To be honest, I didn't think people would care if I just stopped and didn't say why. But enough people have been asking me, and they've been asking consistently enough where I felt it was only fair to give some kind of update about it. And that update is I don't plan to make them again for the foreseeable future. For a while, I thought I would just never make them again, but if my personal hero Justin Bieber has taught me anything, it's to never say never. So I'll just say, for the foreseeable future, I won't be making them. You want reasons? I'll give you 3 reasons. Reason number 1, I don't want to do them anymore. I just don't. I want to get this reason out of the way first because it's a big one, it doesn't require a whole lot of explanation, and it feeds into the other 2 reasons. I thought the change up in format from the QRB to the MMM would change my feelings on the matter. It did for a little bit, but eventually I was just right back to where I started. I am just burnt out on having to keep up with the album release cycle and trying to find new things to say each month about records. Other people are more talented when it comes to that. I don't know if that's where my real skills lie. Why am I doing this still? I think my real skills and my real talents lie more in the deep discog dives and in the, one-off like examining videos or just the little case studies I put out every so often. And that actually leads into reason number 2 why I'm not doing album roundups anymore. People don't seem to want them. Sorry, wait, let me rephrase that a bit. I don't want to dismiss you or your feelings if you were a fan of those series, or if you found like a new favorite album or a new favorite artist because of them. That is incredibly cool to me. I know that there are some people out there who have told me that they found artists because of one of those videos, and I am immensely appreciative of that. But when I say people, I mean the collective figurative body of viewers that are shown my videos via the YouTube algorithm. And the vast majority of them are just not interested in those kinds of videos. Usually whenever I put one of them out, there is a spike in viewership and engagement, but then within a week, it's dead. They don't have the same long tail evergreen appeal that a deep discog dive or a one-off thought piece do. They just don't. And I just want to be clear, that is not meant to guilt trip or pin blame on anyone. Part of my job on this platform is to make interesting videos with engaging stories that are served up to you via interesting titles and thumbnails. And doing that with a random assortment of albums is hard. It's difficult. I don't even know if it's doable unless you prioritize the narrative over the albums. And at that point, that defeats the purpose because it shouldn't be about me and my YouTuber antics. It should be about recommending albums and highlighting artists that I like. I don't want to Mr. Beastify album recommendations. You know what I mean? Now you might say, well, do views and engagement really matter? Can't I just do these album roundups out of the love and the passion for it? And no, you're right. In the grand total, they may not matter. But to that, I say, please revisit reason number 1. And also, I'm just tired. You guys, the world outside of my channel gets bigger with each passing year, and I don't have the time or the energy to make videos that aren't interesting to me, aren't interesting to the majority of people, or don't try something new. I'm sorry. I don't have it in me. Reason number 3, the stuff that might piss people off. The bigger picture stuff. In the majority of cases, I don't think long-form album reviews are the future of music discourse on YouTube. I think if album reviews belong anywhere now on the internet, it's TikTok, or even just short-form videos served up via recommendation algorithms. It's not even the future, really. It's the present. In fact, I think the next evolution of music discourse on the internet is not reviews or even discovery. I think it's people recontextualizing the music they already know and like in new ways. Reaction videos are kind of in that ballpark, but even still, I've seen a lot of people in recent years turning the reaction format on its head, or even just finding new formats or bringing new formats from other genres or other niches into music. I don't think album reviews are going away by any means, but I think we're just going to be seeing more and more formats offered to people. I have a lot of other thoughts about this, but I think if I try to shove them all at the end of this Q&A, it's going to feel very confusing and very just all over the place. So if you want me to make a video about it, about like the future of music criticism and discourse, I'd be down. Now, even with all that said, I am not completely opposed to returning to the album roundup format at some point in the distant future. It would just need like a killer hook to bring people in and to get people excited. I'm also not opposed to offering thoughts on individual albums on, 5-10 minute long videos. Kind of like what I did with Mr. Morale way back in May. Or even, I kind of want to talk about the new Taylor Swift record in that kind of format on its own. And I might do that in the next few weeks. So yeah, I would not have a problem doing that with like big records or even just records that I am interested in. Also, I don't know if anyone would conflate the two, but just to make clear, just because I'm done with like the album roundups does not mean I'm done with like year-end list season type things. Like you're still getting a top 10 albums video and a best music of the year video. Like that is not changing at all. All right, I think that covers everything. Thank you for submitting a question if you submitted a question, and thank you for 200,000 subscribers. Again, it genuinely means the world to me. I'm gonna go and start working on the next Deep Discog Dive, which should be out in the next like week and a half, 2 weeks or so. And here's a hint on who it is. You're gonna hate it. You're just gonna hate who it is. Imagine an artist who you think deserves a Deep Discog Dive or who you'd want to see get one, and then imagine the exact opposite artist, and it's probably not even them. You're gonna hate who I picked. Goodbye.